Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Listening In. So it's really tough to create great experiences without understanding expectations. So today we're going to talk about driver expectations. You're not going to want to miss some of these insights. So listen in and we'll talk about it now. So, not too long ago, one of our brands, Truckers News, did a poll where we asked drivers, basically, after you submit an application, what are your expectations? And I don't think this will come as too big of a surprise, but number one was quick follow-up. It makes sense when they're in that mode of, hey, it's time to find something new. They want to get that information. They want to make that decision because if they're ready to pivot, then they don't want to go any certain amount of time without a paycheck potentially, or if they're just not happy with where they're at, they want to make that move quickly. So once again, not a whole lot of surprise there that their number one expectation after submitting an application is that quick and timely follow-up. And when you look at some of the other answers in there, so that one was about 50% said that answer was number one. About 22% just said regular status updates. So a lot of these just have to do with communication. Hey, I took the time to fill out an application or to reach out to you. And I'm just looking for those updates along the way, and this relates to it too, and the timeline. So help me understand how quickly this process will happen, and what are the status updates along the way, so that I know, am I still in, am I out, when can I expect to hear back from you? Because once again, if they're in that mode, if it's time to make a change, they're looking for those updates, those progress updates, because they're on a timeline. So they would love for that employer to understand that timeline and also set that good expectation. So that's the first one. And I really wanted to base the rest of these off of real conversations with drivers, which I have the opportunity to speak with, dozens, if not hundreds of drivers every week. And so I took the opportunity while on some calls to ask some follow-up questions and see, just how well this aligns with their expectations. And it's spot on. It's really spot on. So these other two come directly from those conversations about this poll and how well it aligns. There's a saying, I guess you could say, or a philosophy in sales that people only buy three things. They buy the company, they buy the product, and the third one, which is a really big one, is they buy you. So this isn't sales, but there is a job here, and we're looking to fill it with the best potential candidates. And so it's important to put our best foot forward. Be transparent, be honest, but sure, absolutely, also trying to sell the role if it's a good fit for that individual, because they've got options. So the question then that I was able to talk through with a number of drivers is, let's say you've got multiple companies that you're speaking with, and the pay is relatively similar, the home time, the equipment, all of those things, let's say, are within range of each other. They're pretty closely related. How do you make that decision? So some interesting answers from drivers, but they're all kind of pretty similar, which is this, hey, if I'm comparing multiple companies and I've done my due diligence, I've researched stuff online, I have a good idea of what they're offering, and if two or three of them are very, very similar, this is what my choice comes down to, is the recruiter. And I thought, it makes sense, but it's also a pretty interesting answer that holds up against, hey, they're buying the company, they're buying the product or the offer, what is being offered, and then they buy the recruiter. So if they made a good connection, if they felt like that individual really listens and wanted to understand what they're looking for and what's being offered, it would make sense that, hey, if I've got 3 or 4 offers on the table, all pretty much the same, I'm going to go with where I made that best connection. And so that's expectation number 2, is you are the differentiator. So create that great experience by understanding the expectations, which is why we're going over this. So number 1, quick follow-up. Number 2, you are the differentiator. Set yourself apart. For the third one, this was actually pretty entertaining, running this by a number of drivers on real conversations, which is in the beginning of the phone call, asking them, hey, maybe after quick introductions, we get on the same page, and then it's, hey, I want to make sure to cover the things that are most important to you. So what are the things that are most important to you? And we'll start there. And this happened on not 2, but 3 phone calls where the driver started laughing. And they weren't laughing because, oh, what a stupid thing to say, or, hey, that's a really funny joke. They were laughing because you could tell that nobody had really asked them what's important to them right up front during that phone call, to where it took them so off guard that a recruiter would ask up front instead of just saying, hey, let me tell you everything about the job and why you should come work here, but to flip the script and say, hey, before I even dive into all of that information, help me understand what's most important to you, and we'll start there. So that's kind of an expectation that I guess maybe drivers didn't know they had, right? Where if it's going to surprise them so much and take them so much off guard that they're going to start laughing at the question, that you can tell that is not the type of experience they're used to, but they really appreciated it. The fact that somebody would start the conversation with what's important to you so that we make sure to cover that completely changed the tone of the conversation to where they felt like, as it should be, the call was all about them. Help me understand what's important to you. We'll go over those things. If it's a good fit, we talk about next steps. That quick follow-up, that communication, that timeline, keeping them in the loop, that's expectation number 1. Number 2, you're the differentiator. So set yourself apart. And one way that you can do that is by doing number 3 and asking up front what's important to them. And that way you become extremely memorable when they're like, gosh, that's the person that if these other job offers are pretty similar, that I'm going to go with, because that person really set themselves apart. That's the company I want to work with. So I hope you find these expectations to be helpful. Once again, you got to understand the expectations to improve the experience. And by doing these things, it'll do just that.